In the East African region of our continent, as we speak to our resident analyst, team leader, journalist, and team leader at Grassroot Journalism Kenya, Dennis Beru, who joins us on Tuesdays on Rise and Shine. Dennis, how are you on this 12th of August?
Very fine, Asanda. How is it in South Africa?
Great, thanks. I think we are starting to experience warmer weather, but I think we're still also a bit in shock about the fact that we're almost halfway through August. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, sure. Same here in Kenya, we are still, experiencing some, some cold season, but we hope for some warm weather soon.
Right. Let's start today with our East Africa rep with Uganda. And a court in Uganda has denied bail to opposition political leader Kizza Besigye.
Yeah, thank you so much, Asanda. Of course, a Uganda judge has refused to grant bail to the veteran opposition figure, Kizza Besigye, who has been in jail for nearly 9 months on treason charges. Judge Emmanuel Baguma said on Friday that the 180-day maximum period before mandatory bail is granted only began when he was remanded in the civilian court on February 2021, which means he fails by short of 12 days to meet the requirement to secure the bail. Remember, his lawyers argued that he should be automatically released on bail because he has spent more than 180 days in jail without the start of the trial. Remember, this case has really raised concern among government critics, including the opposition leader Bobby Wine and rights groups about a crackdown ahead of the Uganda's national election, which will be held early next year. Of course, the incumbent, the president, Yoweri Museveni, who is 80 years old, is seeking re-election. I remember the government has also denied, targeting opposition figures and say those who have been put or detained have committed crimes. Remember, Besigye, who is a former personal physician to Museveni, stood against him in 4 elections, and Besigye has not announced whether he will be running against President Yoweri Museveni.
So, as you say, Uganda's government, in terms of how they've launched and continued a crackdown on opposition voices ahead of those national elections early next year, 2026, there've already been concerns raised about that. So, those who are critical of the government on that point, what are they now saying with these new developments?
Because they are saying that some of the judicial systems in Uganda is in bed with government. That's why they deny a right for bail for the opposition leaders who have been jailed in Uganda. Of course, being in jail for about 9 months without the start of trial, it is against the constitution. And of course, they feel that, why do we see Besigye being denied, a bail? Because 180 days, which is the maximum, duration, one could be in remand. Of course, you have right access to grant or to be granted a bail. Of course, we are seeing this, and some of them are saying that this is just a strategy by the government to deny the opposition figures to run for presidency come early 2026 Uganda's by-election.
Any reaction from opposition Bobby Wine at this stage? As you mentioned, he's another critical voice in Ugandan politics.
Of course, Bobby Wine has commented on this and saying that they will push for government to ensure that the court grants Besigye bail because he has a medical issue, and he should be given opportunity to go to be released and seek proper medication. Remember, we have seen Bobby Wine on campaign trails trying to criticize the government in detaining the longest serving opposition leader in Uganda, that is Besigye.
Let's move to Kenya now, where Gachagua, Ruto, and Uhuru are all facing crucial Mount Kenya by-election test. Mount Kenya is a region with which counties, first of all, and why is it strategic for these elections?
Of course, this is very strategic for this election, Asanda, having in mind that, of course, there was a fallout between former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and President William Ruto. And the counties we are talking about, they are the 10 vote-rich counties of Nakuru. We have Kiambu, we have Nyeri, Murang'a, we have Embu, we have Meru, and so forth. So, of course, with the constitution of the electoral body, that is the IEBC, and last week they announced that all by-elections, about over 20 by-elections, will take place or shall happen in November. Of course, this is going to be a very fierce, battle to prove, the supremacy, who controls the vote-rich Mount Kenya. Of course, some of the areas that we shall be witnessing by-election, it is perceived to be a Gachagua, the former or the embattled deputy president, that is Beru North, where we shall be having by-election. I remember during Jubilee's administration in 2021, we had by-elections in Mount Kenya, and remember by then we had handshake and Deputy President, now the President William Ruto, put on a very strong, team with the UDA party, and he defeated the presidential or the government-sponsored candidates in two by-elections. This is the reason as to why this is going to be a very big test for President William Ruto, whom we see that he is now losing the Mount Kenya region, which really overwhelmingly voted for him during the 2022 election. And of course, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is now already fronting his candidate for the DCP party to vie against UDA's William Ruto.
Let's move to Tanzania now. The country is taking steps to pilot a uranium plant. Where will this be located? And what about this location is seen as the perfect spot for this pilot?
Well, thank you so much, Asanda. Of course, Tanzania is trying to make sure that the sector has been revamped. Of course, the facility will be processed at Mkuju River, which is now located in the southern part of Tanzania. And of course, the project has already been commissioned and set for a design of a main processing facility, which are planned to have an annual production capacity of up to 3,000 tons of uranium. Of course, this is being done by the Mantra Tanzania, which is now a subsidiary of the Uranium One. Representative from the Rosatom organization attended the facilities inauguration. Remember, this is a Russian company, and of course, Russia and Tanzania, they're trying to have the bilateral ties. Of course, a business between the two countries, and of course, nuclear energy is one of them. The biggest project that President Mama Samia Suluhu promised the people of Tanzania. Of course, we are heading to the elections in the next 2 months. And of course, this is going to be one of the mega projects that President Mama Samia Suluhu, of course, will be telling people that, the uranium energy is here, and we are going to give, youth employment opportunities through the project, where over 4,000 Tanzanians will be employed directly into this project.
And in terms of production capacity, what are plans there as far as uranium is concerned in the plant?
Yes, of course, the capacity, we've seen that, they plan to produce about 3,000 tons of uranium per year.
All right. Let's move to Somalia. Somalia is to establish a parallel administration in their Gedo region. This is part of the federal government's plan for a more localized administration. Is this a good move in your view?
Asanda, of course, for me, it is not a good move because one, there is an issue between Jubaland government, which Mogadishu says that they don't recognize that authority that is under Ahmed Madobe, who is the president, who was elected, and of course the main Somalia or Somaliland say that. Of course, his election was unconstitutional. And remember, the new Gedo administration will operate independently from the Madobes led Kismayu-based government, which aim to strengthen governance, security, and service delivery. And Asanda, of course, we know we've had insecurity issues in the Horn of Africa country, and of course. Some, critics say that, of course, this might also deepen, the tension between the federal government and the Jubaland authorities. And remember, they have been having a long-standing, dispute over power sharing and the territorial control in the southern part of Somalia.
All right, before we let you go, let's talk about the African Development Bank, who are contributing towards the building of a new airport in Ethiopia, a chat that we'll be having later on Rise and Shine with one of the journalists who was in attendance at that signing ceremony. What can you tell us about this?
Of course, this is a state-owned, it was signed by the state-owned Ethiopian airline. And the agreement will see Ethiopia, build a runaway airport near the town of Bishoptu, around 45 kilometers southeast of the capital, Addis Ababa. Of course, the airline say it will provide the 20% of the funding of the 10 billion project, and the rest will come from the creditors. Of course, this is going to be one of the biggest airports. If complete by 2029, of course, it's going to be huge in Africa. Of course, the Africa Development Bank, saying that they are going to support this project with over 500 million US dollars. Of course, this has to be approved by the board, and of course, this is an effort to raise about 7.8 billion US dollars for the project, which will have the capacity to handle 100 million, passengers per year. Of course, this will improve the economy of the Ethiopia, and of course, we've seen the issue about Ethiopia Airline becoming the giant of the airline in Africa.
Absolutely. And a report already placed Ethiopia as one of the top 3 performing airports in terms of traffic in and out of the country. I think they come at number 2 after Egypt and SAFA. is number 3. So I guess it would be befitting that they take on this big project, a new airport that is going to be seen as the biggest on the continent. Of course, stay tuned on Rise and Shine for that as we delve deeper into that chat. But Dennis, let's let you go. And we really appreciate you making time for us again on this Tuesday. You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Asanda. Have a good day.
Great. That's journalist